Hello and welcome to today's video where we're going to preview the top laners at MSI. If you haven't followed along with my last couple weeks of videos, I did have team previews as well as a couple other things going on the last couple days with 14.7, 14.8, looking back at 14.6 patches and things like that. So on the board here we have a bunch of stats. So these stats are playoffs only. Afterwards, we're going to go over the champions they played, as well as my rankings for the players. So if you'd like to stick around to the end and watch through it, it'd be great for me. Algorithm and shit like that. So, the players. These aren't ranked in any specific order. Technically, actually, it's the rankings from the Discord, but we'll get into that later. So, not all stats are created equally. As you can see here, the LPL also doesn't give us the fun stats, which are the diffies at 15 minutes, as well as solo kills. Like I said, not everything is created equally. Of course, when we look at it, the Eastern regions are at a higher level of play than the Western regions, and then minor regions thereafter. But it's still nice to look at and just think of these players as, facilitators, carries, hybrids, and things like that. Most players played at least a dozen games. Only Zolfi on Australia Sports played less than a dozen. In terms of KDA, the best was Bin at 5.8 and Ozzy at 5.9 for PSG Talon from the PCS. Ozzy actually had to win against Evie from Team Heretics, but also Detonation Focus Me to get over the hump and get to this event. Kind of weird that the PCS did not end up getting a second seed at MSI now that they took on not only Oceania, but as well as Japan, which were 3 MSI seeds just a couple years ago. CS per minute. We have a wide range here. So 8.7 for Kiea of GAM Esports, and we're going to find that he was a big-time carry for GAM as they went through playoffs, in part due to the scandals that happened in Vietnam. Mid and AD carry being replaced by complete, well, Easy Love isn't a complete random, but Emo might as well be in mid lane, which caused Kiea to put the team on his back and carry them to this event. He had an 8.7, Robo 8.3. He had more games played than Zolfi, so he ends up getting recognition for that. 6.6 for Broken Blade. I had a lot of people in my video, well, actually it wasn't in my video, it was more in Kadrill's chat, and then his Reddit and other things, people not, happy with the fact that I didn't include context with BB's numbers in the sample size of the entire season, which was 42 games, and that 4 of those games were lane swaps, so that's why his stats were so bad. And I just thought to myself, so about 9% of his games were why his stats were so bad. Now, I will say it does hurt stats. I mean, look at it, his CS per minute, 6.6. But he also entered his face-off in those games at times as well. I believe one game he had like 8 deaths, and people could say, yeah, but the Scion passive, and I'm going to say, yeah, but the Scion passive. Let's be real here. He did int his face-off a bit, so I think we need to look at it from both sides. Was he lane swapping? Yes. Did that hurt his numbers a bit? Yes. Did he play the lane swap well and not int his face-off at times? No. So take that for what you will. And then comparing it to Senna, at least in Senna games, there is no CS at all. So I try and eliminate that, where when you're lane swapping, you may not get CS for a little while, but eventually you do start getting it. So 6.6 in part because 1/3 of his games were lane swaps, or at least Scion games. In terms of KP, we had 2 players at about 2 out of every 3 kills, Keen and Blippo. So very involved players. Everybody on the board very involved. Nobody at the 50% or lower mark, which I would call a solo dolo top laner. 369 the lowest at 53.7. In terms of return on investment, so damage divided by gold, the highest is Kiea at 1.88, and we'll see that when we go over his champion pool. Impact, surprisingly high at 1.59. I was honestly pretty shocked by that. Don't really think of Impact as a carry-oriented top laner, but he was dealing a ton of damage in playoffs. A couple others at 1.5, Keen 369. Excuse me. Lower ones, BB, Robo, and Oscarinin of Fnatic. Gold share, who is getting the largest portion of the pie? Kiea over 23%. That's a ton of gold for a top laner. Robo at 22.3%. Some lower totals, 19.7 for Oscarinin and 19.6 for Broken Blade. Damage share, who had the highest? Kiea at 31.4%. Like I said, was the carry for Gam in playoffs. And Zoltvi, 24.3%. So he actually gave the Astral Esports squad quite a bit more damage than the gold he was receiving. 2.3% difference, whereas Robo actually gave Loud 2.2% less than the gold they were receiving. And we do have to keep in mind, that the return on investment stat is only damage. That I just went over, it was only damage, and we're still only going over damage. Top lane, as a role, can be facilitator oriented, can be weak side, can be more tanky, and you're not going to deal a ton of damage. And I have tried to work on their return on investment stat a bit. I did during the season towards the end, and I'm still working on it now to try and broaden it to include other things. I know at a certain point I added in damage taken, but it started to really screw that stat up. We had a lot of players that were on the losing side of games getting credit because, they just soaked damage as their team slowly but surely lost the game. So still working on that. Low damage, Oscar, 17%. That's pitiful. BB under 19%. Bin only 19.6%. And that's because Knight and Elk are obviously really, really damn good players. Shun can deal high damage at times as well. 15-minute split. So Kiea led the way. He was ahead of Vietnamese top laners in playoffs on average 835 gold, 16 CS, and 445 XP. Like, that's a ton. Like, that is when people say, oh, he was gapped. No, he gapped people. Every game that Kiea went even, there's a game where he was ahead 30 CS at 15 minutes. Like, that is incredible. In part due to the scandal. I'm sure you probably played against some backup that hadn't, Easy Love hadn't played in over a year or so. Before this year, maybe. I don't follow minor regions enough to really get into that. CS difference. Keen up 9 CS at 15 minutes, and that's huge because he did play Zeus in a few games. Definitely something to think about. XP difference. Kiea 445, Ozzy 310. Ozzy also had 485 gold up, so he was really dominant in the PCS playoffs against players like Evie and others. Solo kills. Impact had 10 solo kills in 19 games. When you really think about it, think back to it, wow, 10 solo kills in 19 games for Impact is kind of crazy. I'm sure if we look back at his entire career, I don't know if we'll find a window of time where he was averaging a solo kill every other game. 8 solo kills for Oscar in 20 games, in part due to how many games he played probably helped him out there. Because, Kiea had 6 and 13, so that's almost one every other game as well. So, just some stats to go over here as well. I'm going to kind of do a thing that I've done in the past. If you are a longtime supporter of the channel, you're going to notice me do something in the second half of this video. If you're a newcomer, just don't skip around this video. Otherwise, you're going to be, kind of confused at the end. Just for those that are aware of what's going on, I'm going to, I believe BB is just under Bwipo, but definitely above, all the minor region top laners and other Western top laners. But for the second half of this video, we're going to get kind of frisky with it. So stay tuned for that, and be back in a minute. All right, I had to move the mic back a bit, but on the board here we have a bunch of X's and, poorly and crudely drawn lines with a bunch of champions that these players played. Along here we have my ranking, which I'll do at the end, but the players are in the order of what the Discord had them ranked. I had I take my Discord's rankings. If you haven't joined my Discord, if you're new to the channel, join and you can participate in them as I post them. Out of the 19 people that participated, majority were LPL, LEC, LCK fans, and then a drop off to LCS and in minor region. It was 19 people that participated. Interesting things to look at here on this board. 369, Renekton was his most played. We also had Bwipo playing it and Zolfbe playing it more than anything else. So Renekton, common pick with pretty much everybody, but, Keen, Zeus, Oscarin not playing it. Kind of interesting to really think that the LCK didn't. Urgot was a pick by a few people. Ornn by a couple. Just 369 and Bin. Gragas by a few. 369, Impact, Bwipo, so the LCS playing a lot of Gragas. K'Sante, a common pick for Keen, Impact, and Oscarinin. So K'Sante still kicking around. Bin didn't even play it. Bwipo, Kiea, Robo, Zolfbe didn't play K'Sante. Aatrox played by everybody but Broken Blade, Bwipo, and then a few of the minor region top laners. A unique pick, Quinn, played by 369. Rek'Sai, a common pick for a lot of people. And you're going to think, but in your 14.8 video, you only penalized G2. Because G2 made the 8% of the games for the whole split threshold. If I just looked at playoffs, yes, it would affect more people, but G2 have used it a higher percentage of games. So yeah, Bin played it more than anything else. Impact and Bwipo didn't even play Rek'Sai at all. I was going to put in whether, I forgot, 14.5, 14.6, which patch did these guys play on? That's probably something significant that I'm going to try and remember for the next 4 videos. Twisted Fate, most played by Zeus. The majority of top laners playing it. The LPL tops were not. 369 and Bin not playing it. Bwipo not playing it. Robo and Zolfbe not playing it. Rumble, most played by Kiea and Ozzy. Now you know why Kiea had so much damage. He had like over 800 DPM. 1.88 return on investment is insane. It's higher than I think anybody last year. Suppa had a really high return on investment when I kind of was monkeying around with that last year. But regardless, Elk had, I think, the highest at like 1.82 or something in the regular season. Jace, only picked by Keen and Zolfbe. Zach, a pick by Zeus. Broken Blade, Oscar. All the way over here where you can't read it, we have Udyr, which I added on at the last second, swapping out a single play champion I put down here. Ozzy played Udyr more than anything else, which kind of, I said that about Rumble, didn't I? Rumble and Udyr, the same amount of games played for Ozzy in playoffs, which led the way for him. Some interesting picks down here. Just something to kind of hit on first. BB's most played, Sion, hence the lane swap thing. Jax, Robo, that was his most played. Impact was also the only other top laner to play it. Some interesting picks on here. Zeus played Gwen. He also played Vayne. Nobody else played those. Zolfbe played Darius in top lane, so I'm sure Adam was watching that. Volibear played by only Bwipo, as well as Gangplank only played by Bwipo. Olaf played by Bwipo, Oscar, and of course Robo. That is a Robo special. When you're playing loud, probably should just ban that. Probably should just ban it. The rest of loud are not scary enough to just let's just get rid of Olaf out of this equation, especially because Olaf just got buffed. I'm 14.8 or 7. And Kiea also played Smolder top during playoffs, which helps DPM. If you watched my video I did a couple weeks ago, I did a video where I took all the damage numbers from 80 carries when they played all their games, and then also pulled out the Smolder games and looked at whose was changed the most. And Han Samo was boosted beyond belief. It was actually quite something. So let's rank these top laners now. Just something to go over. because this is what people like to see anyways. So, in terms of reality here, Zoltve beat Summit to get here. Summit is a world-class top laner. Yes, he's an inter at times, but there's a reason why he keeps finding a job. There's a reason why he won LCS MVP, in part due to the LCS being kind of weak, and at the same time, he's not a terrible player. Zoltve did that. Robo, very dominant in the CB low. How many players are even on here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now they're 12. So we're going to start with this. We're going to go 12 and 11. Excuse me. Because, we got to be real here. I want to see how Zoltve does at an international level. Of course, like I said, playing into Summit and beating him is something significant. But nevertheless, this is a big moment and a big event. Robo is, I guess, lost the coin flipness that he had in top lane. All these CBLOL supporters in my comment section saying he doesn't int his face off anymore at times. And in part, that was kind of his pizzazz in top lane. If he was like a poor man's Hilly in top lane, if you will. And without that, now he's just meh. And against everybody else here, I don't know if meh really gets it done. So that's a thing. 10th place, we're going to go Oscar with how he's playing. He has been playing very poorly. And that's not to condemn him. I've been an Oscar supporter even before he played a game for Fnatic in the LEC. I was an advocate for him being given an opportunity in the LEC last year. And when he got it, that was a great thing to see. He's a talented player. Long future ahead of him. A lot of people trying to give him crap. Those are the same people that gave him crap when he had a slow start last year. He did very well after that. They got quiet. They ran back to their cave and now have come back out and probably should be forced back into their cave because, this picky, choosy nonsense where we hide and then we don't is like the lowest tier of existence that I could think of. So, let's continue this here. 9th, we have Ozzy. So Kiea played carry-oriented champions. Ozzy did as well, but Ozzy's numbers are so much worse than Kiea's. And like I said, I don't watch a ton of minor region, so it's kind of stat-based for minor region players. Where the major region players I do based off of stats as well as games, not to, be confused with what people might think I do. After this, we're going to go Broken Blade 8th. Speaking of stats, his stats sucked. Lane swaps were part of it. He inted his face off at times. Champion pool not as wide as last year. I think he's... I don't know. I just think he's less consistent than the others. So that's a thing. We're going to go... Kiea is 7th, but I really think, I'm having a tough time between him and Impact personally, because Impact did have carry-oriented stats in the end after playoffs, and he had a great showing, right? The solo kills in part is why I have him where it will. But Kiea, when given an opportunity, has really, when they say like, Jesus take the wheel, it was more like Kiea take the wheel of GAM Esports, and he got them to playoffs. 31% damage share is a 1A carry. He is the guy. And so when he gets to this event, it's clear as day you take him away if you're playing GAM Esports, and then Levi has to do all the work, which he's done for years. So that is what it is. After that, we have Impact 6th. So Impact to me, like I said, facilitator, weak side. Isn't going to end his face off, but truly is, I don't know if he's just going to... There is less potential, so we're going to segue into Bwipo here. Between Bwipo and Impact, there's just less potential, to me, out of Impact, coin flipping a matchup against one of these top 4 players. Does that mean that the LCS beats one of them? No. But I also think Bwipo has a better chance of coin flipping a win against Broken Blade or Oscar or Kiea or whatever. Impact, I believe, should be able to beat Oscar and Kiea, but Bwipo just has, like, his champion pool and things like that. Like, I am a big Whippo supporter. I think that, when you have the willingness to do what he does, I give that a lot of credit, which stats don't necessarily reflect. Surprise to some people's thoughts about the way I do things. But nevertheless, Whippo, fifth. I mean, we just went over it, right? All these unique champions. Volibear, Gangplank, played Olaf. Also played Udyr. Only half the people here played Udyr. Like, he is willing to try things, and you need to be willing to try things to be, elite, in my opinion, in your role. Does that mean I think he's world class, but at the same time, of course, he's top 4 on a whole another level, right? So, it's ironic because these 4 top laners, I like all 4 of them. And I had somebody ask me about Keen a couple weeks ago, and I was kind of pushing back on it because I don't think about my top 5 players very often. And, you look at the stats. Keen did excellent during playoffs, didn't he? Zeus not as much. But Zeus, to me, is a harder carry. Keen has played longer. So it's like this deal here. Plus, Zeus showed up at Worlds, and I really don't want to think of Worlds going into this, but I am. So Keen is 4th. And that's why. Internationally, Zeus has just gotten the job done to a higher degree than Keen. Than Keen has. And so I'm going to have Zeus 3rd. An excellent player. All 4 of these top laners are excellent players. And throw them on anything. Throw them on anything and they're going to do well. Now, T1 are more meta dependent. So when you put Zeus on Ornn or something, it's just not going to work. As well as if you did it with Keen, because, well, hell, if Keen's on Ornn, that means Chovy has not 30, but probably 26, 27% gold share or something, and he's carrying the game, or Pays is carrying the game. Whereas with T1, it's like, Guma's really not, that hard carry to me right now. And Faker does things that can't be explained by stats, and Faker is the MVP. We saw what happened with T1 without Faker in the lineup, that here nor there. Bin 369, we're going Bin 2nd. 369 first. The Discord, 16 of 19 people did pick 369 to be number 1. 3 people did pick Bin. I could see why. Bin is a better carry than 369, as is Zeus. But 369 can literally play anything. He is not meta dependent. 369 is the type of player that wins championships, if that makes sense. I think we just think about 369 for a minute, and just think about the champions he plays, the styles that he can play. That's the sort of player that wins championships, the type of player that you really don't know what they're going to do. You don't know what the team's going to do around them. Whereas BLG and Bin, when left to weak side tank, he can get kind of lost. As a facilitator, I just don't think Bin is as strong, not nearly as strong. Now, is he better carry than 369? Like I said, yes, but he is not nearly as good of a facilitator as 369. So 369 is just more complete. We look at his champion pool. Gragas, Bin's not playing Gragas. But let's think about this for a second. The guy played Gragas, but he also played Quinn. 2 very different champions, right? Now, Bin did play... why did I think that Bin didn't play TF? This top line screwed me up. Oh, jeez. It's too bad. Well, I don't edit my content. If you're new here, we don't edit out mistakes. So, Bin did play TF and Rumble, though 369 didn't. That is something to think about. Like I said, more carry-oriented, so... that's it for the ranking and the video. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, like it. Subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Follow me on Twitter. Join the Discord. Become a YouTube supporter. And hope to see you again tomorrow.